Hey everyone, this is Will with HPC, and we're back here to do a follow-up part 2 video on our video and article back in February, how to run a Microsoft project update meeting without being an expert in Microsoft project. And so in this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the next step. After you've run your meeting, you've collected your updates, what's next? If you didn't have a chance to catch that video, the link is in the comments. So please feel free to go and check that out and let us know what you think. So for today's video, like I said, what we're going to do here, we're in a situation where we've collected updates from our SMEs. We were on our team call. We got all the information we needed, which is great. So now, naturally, as a PM, you want to go ahead and be able to communicate those changes, let people know what has changed, not just for people that couldn't make the meeting or for some stakeholders that like to be apprised of what's going on with the schedule, but maybe for some of those in the meeting that weren't paying attention or didn't really have any updates to discuss. There's a lot of different reasons to do it, but it's a good thing to do in general. So, all right, now that we have all of our updates in, we do have some changes that we would like to share. And the idea is we want people on our project team that are in our meetings to find them informative and know that we have a process of collecting changes, processing them, and communicating them so that no one is surprised when things happen in the schedule. And so let's go ahead and show you a few things you can do here. So just a few really important things that we did in part one was we did have our previous finish field, which is actually our baseline one finish. You can see that if you hover over the column for any time you rename a column. So you can see here that is our baseline one finish. This was the project menu, set baseline, and then we did the drop down for baseline one. That all happened prior to our meeting. So now we know what's changed. And in order to figure out what's changed, what you're going to send out to your team, there are a couple different ways you can go about it. Right now, we're set up in a way where we can tell what has changed, but we are forced to compare the previous finish column with the finish column, which is certainly helpful, but there are ways we can make it easier. And I'm going to go through a couple of those right now. So I'd say the easiest way to do it, to make it automated, is we're going to go ahead and insert a custom field here that makes us in the position where we don't have to constantly be scanning back and forth to compare previous finish and finish. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and right click over here. We're going to go to custom fields. And there are various types of custom fields that you can make. For this one, we're going to be doing a calculation of the finish versus the baseline one finish. So I'm going to choose number, right? And I've got all the number custom fields available to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just use number one. First things first, I'm going to rename that. I like to keep my name short. I typically like to put a custom character before them, like an asterisk, underscore, something like that. That way, whenever you're going to insert these custom fields into your project plan, they'll appear at the top of the list. So for this one, I don't want it to be a super lengthy name because it's a short column that displays a small amount of data. It's really just for visual courtesy that we're putting it in here. So I'm going to say F-VAR, which would be my finish variance. So I'm going to go ahead and rename it. Click on. Next thing we want to do is we want to tell this custom field what to do. So we're going to go ahead into the custom attributes and click the formula box here. And the formula that we're going to use, and there's plenty of help guides and information online on how to work with formulas in project. This one's going to be pretty simple. As you can see here, you can use the inherent project functionality to select fields within your plan. Say if I were to want to choose my finish date, my baseline one finish date, you can see here, I can just find baseline one finish. I could also find finish, right? So project allows you to do that. It also allows you, it also allows you, similar to Excel, you can look up the different functions that are available to you. And when it comes to calculating differences in dates and projects, there are some bells and whistles that project adds in that do make it a little bit more complicated. We're going to keep it to the simplest possible version today. I'm actually going to use this date value formula. So the formula we're going to use that will calculate our finish variance is going to be date value. We've got a parenthetical here. And then within brackets, we're going to identify the field that we want to actually use in that formula. Anytime you're using formula for a custom field, the actual fields that you're referencing will go in those brackets, and the formulas that you use to help you write the functions that you use to help you write the formulas, they'll use things like Excel, like parentheses, where you put your parameters inside of those. Right, so we're going to do date value for finish minus date value for our baseline one finish. And all right, project will tell you if that formula is good to go, or if you get a syntax error. I didn't have a syntax error here. Project is just telling me that the existing data in that field will be deleted now that all those values will be calculated via formula, which is great. That's what I wanted to do. So I go ahead and click it. All right, so now we've got our formula set up. Next thing we want to do, instead of this formula kicking out numbers, we really want it to be visually accommodating. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add some graphical indicators in here. This is very simple. I basically want this formula to tell me whether or not the finish date was delayed or was made earlier than the previous finish, which we captured in baseline one. So I'm going to do two different tests here. The first one, I'm going to say is greater than 0. So that would indicate a delay. So I'm going to go ahead and use a red flag here to indicate a delay. And then vice versa, I'm going to use a is less than condition. We'll say is less than 0 for our finish variance custom field. And this is going to be the opposite scenario where we actually had an early finish, which is always fun in project management. So I'm going to use a green flag for that one. All right. So pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and click. Last thing I'm going to do before I get out of here is I do want this to be calculated for my summary rows, not just the subtasks. So I'm going to go ahead and tell project to use that formula for the summary rows as well. All right, we should be set up. I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. Once I have that formula set up, I'm going to go ahead and insert a column. I'm going to find that custom field that I created, which boom, since I used the custom character, it's going to come to the top of my list here. It's the asterisk finish variance number 1 custom field. You can see it pops in here. We're already getting results on it. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller just so I can still see my Gantt chart and all the other relevant fields. All right, so now that we have this custom field in here for our finish variance, I can see that we had a delay with task 3 and work package 2. We also had a delay to planning package 2 and 3. And we actually had some early finishes for work package 4 tasks 2 and 3, which is great. So now that we have this formula set up, one thing that you can do instead of just going back and forth and scanning finish and baseline 1 finish, your previous finish, is obviously you can just look for these visual cues, which are given out by the red and green flags. You can also filter on the red and green flags by, remember this is a number field, so it's going to calculate the numerical difference between your finish and baseline 1 finish date. So if you only want to look at tasks within Excel that have a finish variance, you're going to go ahead and remove zeros. Once again, this is a number field. So once I do that, you can see here that the only tasks that are showing up now are the tasks in which the finish date has changed, right? So pretty quickly here, just by adding this custom field, we were able to get to the point where we can visually pick out what changed in that meeting that we just held with our team, which is going to be super helpful when we're trying to communicate with them, right? Another way that you can do this is, let's say we didn't only want to see the activities where the finish changed. We also wanted to see any activities where any sort of updates were made. You'll see here that I was taking notes during my meeting, which I do recommend. I guess it'll take you, it depends on your experience level with project or just as a PM. If you're able to take those notes as your team is talking, great. Recommend to keep them very short, almost like you're a court stenographer, just shorthand. Make sure you understand what they mean at minimum. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if you look at all the notes I took, I did provide a date stamp in front of them. Today is the 7th of April. I met with my team today. So anytime I leave a comment here, I want to include the date. And the reason why I want to do that is alternatively to using the filter functionality to look at what has changed in the schedule with the finish variance column, if I use it on the notes column, what I can do is I can do a custom filter for any notes that contain 07 April. When I do that, there you go. So now I can see everything that changed. And then if you cross-reference the notes field, which I now have filtered, with the finish variance field, you will see things that wouldn't come up, tasks that would not have been visible with the finish variance filter applied. You can see 1, 2 tasks or something, right? So the reason why these didn't show up is because their finish dates didn't change. So the finish variance custom field didn't recognize them as being changed. And this does happen often when things are completed, when things are marked on track, and so on, right? So this is an advantage of using a notes field. I said I highly recommend anytime you take a note, also record the date stamp in the note field. That allows you to do things like this, like filtering for changes that happen on a specific day or during a specific meeting. And you've seen here what that allows us to do is not only look at this change with our finished and baseline finish comparison, but also things like tasks completing, which is sometimes something to, or it's always good to have a little bit of positive information when you're communicating with your teams about the schedule, because it's not everyone's favorite topic of discussion. All right, so now that I've shown you a couple different ways of figuring out what changed after you made changes in an update meeting with your team, let's go ahead and work on communicating. So pretty simple here. I'm going to go with the notes option as my filter. Obviously, if your team is only concerned with finish dates or you find that more for you to be doing, feel free to use the finish variance filter as I just showed you. I'm going to use the filter for notes taken on April 7th. And I'm going to use that to go ahead and reach out to my team. And pretty simple here. I'm going to go ahead and select all the tasks here that show up on the filter, here to Outlook, sending the mail to myself. But typically what I would do is I would say, schedule from 07 April 2026 status update meeting. And what I can do here is, just put my team. I realize it's only me, but I'm just go ahead and say something like, hello, thanks everyone for joining today's meeting. Here are the changes that were made to the schedule. I've already copied that table for MS Project, so I go ahead and Control V, paste that in, and you can see here I've got a filtered list of the tasks that were changed. So depending on what I want to show here, you can all these fields. If you want this table to be smaller, feel free to do so. You can also set up, like a Microsoft project that shows different fields whenever you're pulling an extract. But for the sake of simplicity for this exercise, we're just going to paste it in as is. All right, so quickly here, I'm able to communicate with my team what has changed. Something I'll typically do here is, I'll code anything that is a delay. That would be the positive numbers here. I'd probably go ahead and make that, with a red highlights. And then for my early finishes, I would go ahead and make those white text with a green highlight. Something like that. You can use fill colors however you want. Graphical indicators for your team, they do go a long way. You want to save people time and you want them to be able to quickly understand what you're trying to do here. All right, so now we have an email ready to shoot off to our team. What changed in the schedule? However, there is something a little bit more that we can do that is really easy to get out of project. And so now that we're letting our team know what changed, they have an understanding of what's ongoing and what just happened. Maybe they know a little bit more. Maybe you can just do a little bit of extra work to give them a little bit more information about the activities that are upcoming. And this would be called a look ahead. This is a pretty standard thing that PMs will be expected to do when they're managing a schedule. And I'm going to show you how to set up your capabilities to do that in this video right now. So let's go ahead. Anytime you set a filter, you always want to clear it. It's safe to clear all filters by pressing F3. Highly recommend that. That's one of the hotkeys you definitely want to learn in project. All right, so we want to give our team a, let's say, 2-week look ahead. I feel like that's a pretty good time span, especially if you're meeting weekly. I feel like 2 weeks is good. Some teams do 30-day look aheads, 2-month, 3-month look aheads. If ingrained in your organization, then feel free to set this up however you want occurring to those time periods. So for right now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a custom filter. And so I'm going to go to the View menu, to the Filter button, and on the drop down, I'm going to go ahead and create a new filter. And I'm going to name this filter. Once again, I always like to use a special character when I'm creating a custom filter, custom field, and so on. We're just call this the 2-week look ahead. All right. This box over here for show in menu, that's important. You always make sure that's clicked. Otherwise, you might have to root around a while just to find the filter that you made. All right. So the first condition we're going to set up is going to any activity that is set to start in the next 2 weeks. So any activities that are currently that need to start in the next 2 weeks according to the plan. So our first condition is that the start field is less than or equal to. And then we actually want to prompt the user to provide input. This is a dynamic filter, and we're going to use it over time, over the lifespan of the project, right? So a good way to do that is I don't think a lot of people know this, you can actually use Microsoft Project to prompt users to provide input. And so what I like to do is I like to put in quotations here, 2 weeks from today. And so the quotations combined with the question mark is what triggers this functionality in Microsoft Project to prompt a user to provide input. You'll see why I did that here in a few moments. All right. So we part of the start criteria for tasks that need to start in the next 2 weeks. But we do want to add a little bit more. We also want to add an and condition here for percent complete equals 0, right? So that's our first condition. This is going to grab all the activities that need to start in the next 2 weeks. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up an or condition, and we're going to look at finish dates. So we're going to look at finish dates, which are for tasks that are scheduled to finish in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to do a similar thing here as we did with start I'm going to say is less than or equal to. And I'm going to do the same thing like I did up top. I'll do the quote 2 weeks from today, end quote, with a question mark at the end. And then that's half of our finish condition. We also only want project to pool in this filter. We only want it to pool for tasks that have percent completes, which are less than 100%. Okay. Last thing to do here, I'm going to click show related summary rows. And so we've got this all set up. I'm going to go ahead and save it. All right. And I'm sure you're wondering what that looks like. When I go to run that filter, I'm going to come up here and you see since I use that special character, it's the first thing that pops up. I'm going to go ahead and click on that 2 week look ahead filter. And here's where those quotations and question marks came into play that prompt the user for input. So you can see here, anytime this filter is run, you're going to get a pop-up, which makes you choose a date, right? 2 weeks from today, really easy. You just use the little calendar tool here. You move your mouse down by 2 rows and you don't have to do any calculation. So I'm going to use that 421 date. And then I get prompt again. Remember, we did a start condition and a finish condition. So it might seem a little tedious. You have to do it twice, but honestly, it takes about seconds to do, especially when you're not explaining this to people. All right, we've done that. Let's go ahead and click OK. And here you go. Now I've got a list of activities that are either to start in the next 2 weeks. This would be one of those where it's a 0% complete and its start date in the schedule is within the next 2 weeks, or tasks that are scheduled to finish in the next 2 weeks, which you can see here with this activity, which has a scheduled finish date of the 14th of April. All right, so now that we've got this list of activities that we're going to include in the look ahead, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, just copy out a project, jump over here to my email. I'm just going to add a few more words here. So we talked about changes that were made to the schedule, and we also want to say, and here is a list of activities which are coming in the next few weeks. Paste that in, maybe recording this live here, maybe I'll just say, and here are the activities scheduled to start or finish in the next weeks. Here we go. Okay, now nothing fancy here. I'd like to say thanks, and I did say thanks to everyone for joining, so I don't know, just being a PM for so long, I like to say thanks again at the end. We do appreciate when our SMEs and team members are willing to jump on calls with us and watch us do our thing in Microsoft Project. All right, so now I've got an email ready to send out to my team, which shows the changes that were made to the schedule in the meeting. Also, the next 2 weeks of activities, which are either scheduled to start or finish. So typically, look at and, in progress. These are really good things for PMs to be providing their teams on a regular basis, especially after you meet, especially after you make them spend time with you to update the schedule. Just a few things here, and this should be for your team. It really gives your team a sense of, oh, hey, we went through the meeting. It was informative. Someone's tracking the changes. People are probably on this email that weren't in the meeting. So based on the way that the PM captured this, they should be able to have a basic understanding of what's going on. As I'm looking at this, I probably would recommend removing the predecessors and successors fields. That way, you're only really seeing the relevant information. So yeah, that's it. Go ahead and shoot off that email, and now my team knows what happens. And also, you may have your boss or, maybe departmental don't attend all of your meetings. You can CC them on emails. That way, they can know what's going on with the project schedule. They can just pop up to one of the thousands of emails that they get, look for your name, and they'll associate your name in their information in a timely manner that gives them an idea of what's going on. So yeah, hopefully you found helpful. Like I said, if you didn't catch part 1 of our Microsoft project update article and videos on our website, the link is in the description. Feel free to comments, reach out, let us know what you think. But yeah, thanks again. Have a great day.